The ongoing conflict is not only a military struggle against an external aggressor, it is a critical internal battle against the corruption that threatens the very foundation of the state. The National Anti-Corruption Bureau and the Special Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office have just launched their largest and most politically volatile investigation to date, an operation that strikes directly at the inner circle of the Ukrainian leadership. This massive scandal, involving the theft that critical funds from the energy sector, is a devastating blow to the nation's integrity and its relationship with Western partners. This is FPV Explainer, where we break down the most fascinating stories in drone warfare, global affairs, and US domestic politics. If you're enjoying this deep dive, hit the like button, subscribe, and drop a comment telling us what topic you want to see next. Your feedback shapes our future videos and keeps us bringing you clear, detailed analysis from the front lines. Also, please watch this video to the very end even if you played in the background without sound, as your continuous viewing is critical to help promote the truth about the war. The investigation, grimly named Operation Midas, is focused on a high-level criminal organization that systematically defrauded the state energy sector. The scale of the alleged theft is staggering. Approximately $100 million in illegal profits was siphoned through sophisticated kickback schemes involving contracts with Energoatom, the state nuclear energy company. This colossal amount represents funds that were desperately needed for wartime stability, energy infrastructure repair, and national defense. The theft itself is a direct act of betrayal against the Ukrainian people, committed while the nation is under constant bombardment by Russian forces. The political sensitivity of this operation is acute because of the individuals involved. The investigation directly implicates figures in the highest echelons of business and government. The search warrants targeted Timur Mindich, a prominent businessman and co-owner of the Quartal 95 studio, an organization deeply intertwined with the background and political rise of the current Ukrainian leader. The timing of the subsequent events is equally damning. Mindich reportedly fled Ukrainian territory just hours before NABU detectives and SAP prosecutors arrived to execute their search warrants. This high-profile flight of a key figure immediately casts a shadow over the entire investigation and the leadership's commitment to internal accountability. The significance of this scandal cannot be overstated. It provides Putin with an immediate, powerful propaganda weapon to validate his false claims of Ukraine being a failed state rife with Western-enabled corruption. For the Ukrainian leadership, whose political mandate was founded on the promise of anti-corruption reforms, the scandal presents an existential crisis. The failure to demonstrate swift, complete, and uncompromising justice will threaten the very flow of financial aid and military support from Western partners, who view the eradication of corruption as a prerequisite for continued assistance. The integrity of the state and the continuation of the war effort are now directly dependent on the successful, transparent prosecution of Operation Midas.
We have established the colossal scale of the financial crime, the $100 million theft from the state energy sector. Now we must dissect the internal mechanism of this corruption, which reveals a dangerous truth. The alleged scheme reached the highest echelons of Ukrainian government, utilizing connections that lead directly to the political enemies of the state in Russia. The political fallout of this scandal is immense because the investigation extends far beyond the president's personal circle into the functional apparatus of the cabinet. Search warrants were executed against the current Minister of Justice, German Galushchenko, who previously served as the Minister of Energy. This signals that the alleged criminal enterprise had successfully co-opted systemically important ministries, allowing the kickback schemes to flourish at the very top of the energy sector's regulatory and financial structure. The involvement of such high-ranking officials transforms the crime from simple theft into a profound act of institutional subversion, proving that the rot is not confined to the periphery, but has metastasized into the core of the government. The mechanism used to facilitate and conceal the theft is the most damning element, as it exposes the clear nexus between Ukrainian corruption and Russian strategic interests. The ill-gotten profits, allegedly derived from 10 to 15% kickbacks on vital Energoatom contracts, had to be laundered through a network designed to conceal the origins of the funds. The investigation revealed that the office used for the money laundering operations was located in premises belonging to Andriy Derkach, a former Ukrainian member of parliament. Derkach is not merely a retired politician. He is a notorious figure who fled Ukraine after the full-scale invasion and subsequently became a senator in Russia, openly serving the agenda of the Putin regime. This connection is strategically critical. It proves that the vast wealth siphoned off from Ukraine's energy budget, money desperately needed for the war effort and infrastructure repair, was flowing through and potentially benefiting an asset of the Russian state. This financial entanglement is a gift to Putin, validating the narrative that Ukrainian corruption is so rampant that its internal rot is actively enriching the enemy. The investigation thus reveals a profound moral and operational failure. The ministers and politically connected individuals who should have been guarding the state treasury were allegedly using the nation's wartime vulnerability to secure private gain, with their criminal operations directly linked to those who have actively joined Russia. The ultimate conclusion is that this corruption is not a victimless crime. It is an act of internal sabotage that undermines the legitimacy of the entire war effort. For the Ukrainian leader, who was elected on an anti-corruption platform, the implication is severe. He must now confront the reality that the integrity of his government and the continued support of his Western partners, who prioritize accountability above all else, depend entirely on his willingness to deliver transparent, uncompromising justice, no matter how high the investigation leads.
We have analyzed the colossal theft in the criminal infiltration of the Ukrainian government. Now we confront the stark, agonizing contrast that defines the nation's struggle. The blatant, institutionalized corruption occurring while the country faces an existential threat to its very survival, symbolized by the constant Russian assault on the energy system. This conflict is characterized by a brutal duality. On one side, we have the shadow war of self-enrichment. Ministers and politically connected individuals are allegedly siphoning $100 million in kickbacks from contracts meant to repair and stabilize the national energy grid. On the other side, we have the visible, physical reality of the war. The constant, systematic bombardment of power plants and substations by Putin's missile and drone strikes. This juxtaposition, the massive internal theft of funds earmarked for defense against the very systems being destroyed by the external enemy, is a profound moral liability that threatens to shatter the trust of the Ukrainian people and their Western partners. The most potent, unforgettable symbol of this national vulnerability occurred during a high-profile interview. The light in the room where the Ukrainian leader was speaking with a British newspaper abruptly went out. The subsequent pause, the visible frustration of the leader, and the quick switch to generator power, while brief, were a powerful, unscripted reminder of the constant dark reality of life under Russian aggression. This blackout was not just a technical glitch. It was a devastating political and psychological symbol of Ukraine's fragility. It visually demonstrated to the international audience that while the nation is suffering under continuous attack, the stability of its leadership and infrastructure is hanging by a thread. This continuous assault on the energy system acts as a political Damocles sword hanging over the leader's head. The strikes are not random. They are a calculated, long-term strategy by Putin to cripple Ukraine's ability to function as a sovereign state, especially in the cold winter months. But the scandal exposes the devastating internal consequence of these external attacks. The funds that should have been spent reinforcing the energy infrastructure with protective shielding and advanced anti-air defense, funds that might have prevented the recent mass casualties and blackouts, were allegedly stolen by the corrupt elite. The political risk is immense. The continuation of this war is entirely dependent on the willingness of the Ukrainian people and the West to continue fighting. When the populace is forced to endure freezing homes in darkness under Russian attack, only to learn that ministers and powerful political allies were actively stealing the funds meant for their protection, the moral foundation of the war effort is catastrophically undermined.
The Ukrainian leadership must now move beyond statements of support for the anti-corruption agencies and prove with absolute certainty that justice is inescapable even for those in the innermost circle of power. The integrity of the state depends entirely on whether the pursuit of justice is as relentless as the Russian missile strikes.
We have analyzed the devastation caused by internal corruption and external strikes. Now we confront the ultimate strategic consequence, the colossal political gift this $100 million scandal hands directly to Vladimir Putin. This is a geopolitical gambit that the Kremlin can immediately and ruthlessly exploit to justify its aggression, erode Western resolve, and destabilize the Ukrainian state from within. The timing of Operation Midas, which exposed the alleged theft of critical funds from the energy sector, is a profound political opportunity for Moscow. Putin has struggled for years to legitimize his illegal invasion, relying on the flimsy propaganda narrative that Ukraine is a failed state governed by a corrupt Western-backed regime. The flight of key political allies, the involvement of high-ranking ministers, and the sheer scale of the alleged theft now provide Putin with immediate, verifiable proof, a perfect propaganda weapon. The Kremlin's public statement regarding the possibility of peace in the wake of the scandal is a cynical maneuver. It implies that Ukraine's internal instability, not Russia's military might, is the factor that will finally bring the conflict to an end. This rhetoric, designed for both internal Russian consumption and external Western consumption, is a strategic attempt to shift the entire burden of responsibility for the war's continuation. The immediate objective for Putin is to paralyze the flow of Western financial and military aid. The entire framework of Western support is built on the premise of Ukrainian integrity and accountability. This scandal immediately forces Western political leaders to confront uncomfortable questions. Are we sending billions of dollars to a government that cannot secure its own treasury? Is the money being used to fight the aggression or to line the pockets of ministers and politically connected individuals? This political scrutiny is a direct, measurable risk to the continuation of crucial support programs. Every dollar lost to corruption is an unforced error that Putin can immediately point to as justification for ceasing aid. Furthermore, the scandal provides Putin with the perfect narrative to slow down any future escalation plans being discussed in Washington. The debate over sending long-range missiles, such as those proposed by the Trump administration, can be instantly derailed by the question of accountability. Why risk escalation if the funds and resources provided are simply going to be stolen by the corrupt elite? This manufactured doubt is a crucial strategic goal. Putin aims to use this corruption as an absolute shield against any further political or military pressure from the democratic world. The long-term threat is internal destabilization. The scandal confirms to the Ukrainian populace that the fight against external aggression is being undermined by internal treason. This moral decay, exposed at the highest levels, breeds distrust in the government, fuels cynicism about the war effort, and creates the ideal environment for the Kremlin to launch further hybrid attacks, utilizing agents of influence and political chaos to fracture the nation's wartime unity. In essence, the corruption scandal is a profound political victory for Putin, allowing him to prosecute his war using Ukraine's own internal weaknesses as his greatest weapon.
We have analyzed the catastrophic scale of the $100 million theft and the immediate political weaponization of that scandal by the Kremlin. Now, we confront the final, critical verdict. The integrity of the Ukrainian state and the personal survival of its leadership depend entirely on the ability to deliver full and public inevitability of punishment for those involved. The exposure of Operation Midas has inflicted colossal reputational damage on Zelenskyy. He rose to power on an explicit anti-corruption mandate, having campaigned as a political outsider committed to dismantling the old system of graft and patronage. the alleged involvement of his close business partner and co-owner of Kwartal 95, along with high-ranking government ministers, is a direct, existential assault on the foundation of his political legitimacy. This is not a time for deflection. It is a moment of truth, where the promise of a new Ukraine is being tested by the resilience of the old corruption. The political stakes are monumental. The continuation of the war effort is entirely contingent on the unwavering financial and military support of the Western world. This support, channeled through billions of dollars in aid and critical weapons systems, is strictly conditional on accountability and anti-corruption measures. The successful prosecution of this scandal, the transparent public pursuit of justice against ministers, political allies, and tycoons, is the singular factor that will preserve the trust of the United States and the European Union. Any appearance of leniency, any sign that the political elite can shield its own from the consequences of their crimes, will be instantly leveraged by Putin and will immediately place the entire framework of Western assistance under a massive political threat. The paradox of the war is stark. While the nation successfully fights off an external aggressor with unparalleled bravery, the internal enemy, corruption, has become the greatest long-term threat to the regime's survival. The system's integrity is being judged not by its ability to hold the front line, but by its ability to hold its most powerful citizens to account. Zelensky must now move beyond mere statements of support for the anti-corruption agencies. He must become the primary champion of this justice. The spectacle of the current minister and the president's inner circle being subjected to the full, uncompromising force of the law is the only currency that will restore the credibility of the state and silence the devastating propaganda emanating from Moscow. The survival of Ukraine is now inextricably linked to the uncompromising application of justice.